Welcome to the Savage FINcast, episode 83, a return to our FINcast offshoot format called FINterviews. This is a periodic bonus podcast in addition to our monthly issue reviews. This format focuses on interviews with artists, writers, industry insiders, or just friends in general. What they all have in common is a love of Savage Dragon and the work of Erik Larsen. So let's start off with some introductions. Our first host is our FINcast founding father, who just happens to be celebrating his birthday the day of this recording.
Happy birthday to me.
How you doing, Jim Purcell?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been an eventful day. Getting at a big lobster dinner. My mother really splurged. She bought me my ticket for Terrificon in August. Big comic convention right in my backyard. I'm real excited.
Which hopefully we'll all be able to meet up together and hang out.
Yeah.
Become blood brothers at last.
Yeah.
Our next host is not celebrating his birthday, but he's having a good time anyway. Welcome, Raven Perez.
You thought it was going to be Adam Pruitt, suckers. Flashback. Woo!
It's like alternate Earth. Who is this guy?
He couldn't make it. But I'm holding down the fort. It's been a great non-birthday. Thanks for asking.
I did.
You're still having fun, I can tell.
Not getting lobster.
Of your voice.
Yeah, I'm not getting lobster, but I'm getting pizza, so that is...
Lobster pizza.
Is that like taco pizza?
No, it's just regular pizza with lobster.
Here in Pittsburgh?
For rich people.
I wouldn't doubt lobster pizza is a thing.
So, anyway, my name is Craig Olson, and I'm just along for this wacky ride. I'm really excited to introduce our FINterview guest, making his second appearance on the show. It's comics writer, editor, and publisher Gary Carlson. And Gary has worked on books for Image Comics, such as Vanguard, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Supreme, and titles for DC and Marvel such as Aquaman and Nova. So happy to have him back. All right, Gary, thanks for joining us. It's been about 6 years since we last spoke on the Savage FINcast. But I know we really wanted to get you back on within this past year to get you talking about the new reprints of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. It's now dubbed Urban Legends. It's the original Image series from, I think it was 96 to 99. And it's now being published through IDW.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's great to see it out again, and it looks great in color. So,
well, that's the one thing too. I mean, originally it was all black and white, and so we're seeing it for the first time in color, and they've really done a great job.
It's a lot of fun. You know, I think originally it was going to be in color, but the numbers just weren't there, so it went out in black and white, and that's how it stayed. You know, so I mean, the orders were never really outstanding on it. So,
but it's kind of crazy though. You say they weren't outstanding when you compare it probably to today's numbers for orders.
They probably weren't too bad. Yeah.
Do you remember how many issues number one sold in 1996?
No, I have no clue, to tell you the truth.
Bet you it was probably close to like 100,000 or something like that.
No,
I don't.
So I think it was, and I really don't have a clue. I haven't looked at any of that stuff in years. I'm guessing it was closer to 12 or 15,000, maybe.
Really? Even back in 96?
Yeah, you know, I mean, whenever my Vanguard book came out, that was doing 100,000.
Oh, that's what I'm confusing it with. I'm sorry.
Vanguard was. They canceled it when it got below 100,000.
Oh, the irony!
Yeah, and so you know, however much longer later this was, you know, it just wasn't showing, going to show the profit. I mean, it was. Yeah. I think that's why the Mirage stopped. You know, I mean, it was kind of a dead point.
Yeah, I think the cartoon was over by that point, so a lot of like the Turtles fandom It just wasn't there anymore.
Well, and what was there, they were looking for the cartoons, you know?
Right,
Mm-hmm.
and the comics was not that at that point.
I remember, going into shops and doing signings and stuff, and people were showing up with their little kids, and I was like, you might think twice before showing them this,
Especially that first issue.
Getting blasted off and stuff, so...
Which is great for the long time. I really enjoyed it at the time. I was, a teenager, and it was like, this is the we had the cartoon and the kids stuff, but the comic seemed like it was always the place for like the violent kind of, they're ninjas,
Well, that was the point of it. I mean, was to go back to the feel of the early books, the original black and white books, and that's what we were trying to do. We were trying not to do the cartoons or the movies or any of that kind of stuff, to go back and, that's what we were doing. And people will say, oh, they're doing an image book. And it's like, we didn't really have anything to do with image so much, Right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just how it went. I mean, the fact that it wasn't the cartoon, they were all going to have the red masks on the covers, and Erik requested something that would differentiate the turtles from each other, short of just their weapons. And that's that's kind of how it happened, where one of them kind of got blasted in the face, and one became a cyborg, and another one lost his hand,
Now, when we last spoke to you, I feel like we talked about there had been interest in reprinting your Ninja Turtles run, even all the way back then, but it had been it had not materialized yet.
No.
So what was the catalyst to get this going? To get the reprints going this time?
I think it all comes down to Kevin Eastman was pushing hard for it once it was sold off, and IDW started reprinting stuff and doing
other Turtles.
Yeah, Turtles. Yeah. That I think he pushed hard for them to get it reprinted, and so I'm guessing we owe it to him, for sticking up for us and all.
I see.
Was he a particular big fan of the series, or do you know like what the impetus was?
He always said he enjoyed it, I mean, he wasn't really working on it. I mean, the whole run we did back then, I worked with Peter Laird. Peter Laird was, I don't know, I ran everything past him,
Okay.
He wasn't really the editor, but he kind of had a final say and said, how about this or how about that? And the once or twice I met Eastman and Laird, they were both, nice enough guys and stuff. But yeah, later on, I think Eastman took a look through the stuff and he enjoyed it, so.
Yeah, rightfully so. It's really fun.
Yeah, plus it was, 23 issues that they could pretty much put out, and that's what they're doing, So we're going to be doing 3 new issues to tie it together at the end.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was 3. I thought it was like 1 or 2, but that's really cool.
I thought it'd be 2 because, we did 23 issues, and 25 is a nice round number, but somebody came up with 3, and that worked for me too. I was just reading through my plot proposal that I wrote up, before they started reprinting it, to tell them what I would do to tie it up, and I think it's going to be fun. I think I'm looking forward to it. So
are you the one who's going to be script writing and scripting it, or are you just like plotting it?
Oh no, I'll be. Once we get the okay, Frank will start drawing it from the plot, and then I'll dialogue it.
Okay,
cool.
Great. So it'll be the real deal.
Yeah,
excellent.
The team, I think Frank will probably be inking it. I'm not 100% sure, but
cool.
It's too bad they couldn't release like black and white like variants of those last 3 issues for like the completionists who have the image issues.
Oh, hey, you never know.
That would be cool.
So,
I do find it amazing, like how well. I know, like after the first issue, Frank kind of changed up his style to make it look really good for black and white.
Yes.
But I'm really amazed at how well the color has worked. I was a little skeptical knowing that these things were drawn for black and white.
Yeah.
That I wasn't sure that the color, they were going to be able to pull it off with the color. And it's really opened my eyes to a lot of little details I didn't notice before, or just cool things that you could only do with color. It's been real interesting, and I think it's really worked out well. I was just wondering what your thoughts were on the color.
Yeah, to me, I mean, it really sings in color, and they send us PDFs of the colors and ask, if we have any complaints or changes, and Frank's a lot more on top of it than I am. I'm generally like, oh, that's pretty good, or this is, not. Very rarely do I even catch stuff, and Frank will tell that this back hand and the guy in the back is wrong, and blah. He's got a great eye for it. So
yeah, I love, like, when they do like the turtles in the astral plane or whatever they're in, and they got that glowing blue look, like that really sings. The scarred up Raph face, that when you can see the reds, that really stands out. Like there's just things that, although the black and white has its charms, and I really enjoy the black and white because it gives you that ninja dark feel. There's a lot of nighttime in this comic, which is really cool for ninjas and stuff, and the contrast of shadows that work well in black and white. But I was real surprised at how well the color did work, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah, me too. I just, I don't know. To me, like I said, color makes such a difference, and it helps here, and other stuff when you see it, it's like, I mean, I've done a lot of black and white stuff over the years, and when I see them in color, it's like, well, now it looks real, so.
Yeah. So, how much was Erik involved in these issues? I know there's a lot, like, the second issue you have Mako, and there's a lot of, of course, your co-creation with Erik Vanguard's in it, and Horridus, and at certain points in this series, it does feel like a major Savage Dragon tie-in, which is a lot of fun for Savage Dragon fans.
He was publishing it, I think.
Right.
What happened is after, he had the Turtles guest star in one of the initial issues. I don't know whether it was 2 or whether it was of the.
It was 2 of the ongoing and 22 of the ongoing were the issues.
I thought it might have been in the miniseries, but they liked what he did and asked him if he wanted to do it, and he was up to his ears in work, and suggested Frank and I, which I didn't really try to do Erik, but we had access, to his characters and whatever, and my characters, so we worked them in, but like I said, we weren't necessarily trying to be an image book or part of the Highbrow universe or anything, but it just kind of worked for me, worked for us, so.
Yeah, no, it's fun, and it was fun how it ties in, the Big Bang universe and the Dragon universe. It's always cool to see those guest stars like Night Watchman and the Dragon guys.
I want to say that Night Watchman crossover stuff was on point, great. Because I hadn't realized that the Turtles had made guest appearances in Big Bang Comics itself.
Yeah, just the one. We made an effort to make it look like class. Well, that's what Big Bang was
right.
Homaging the original stuff. So we tried it. Yeah, every time I come across those particular pages, I'm very proud. Of the Zipatones and
yeah, that whole story was like a send up of Frank Miller, and then it just transitions to Eastman and Laird's Turtles in the middle of the story. And I thought that was brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the point of it, and it was fun. And that story's sort of in limbo. They don't necessarily want me reprinting it, but they didn't necessarily want to.
It's almost unfortunate they didn't reprint that as a backup in that issue.
Yeah,
because that would have made the most sense of where to put it.
And just for the listeners out there, we're talking about Big Bang Comics number 10, which is got Kid Galahad on the cover. That's what we're talking about, this kind of mini crossover.
Yeah. He fights the Foot Clan and meets the Turtles as children. They're not quite teenage yet.
And there's a character called Headhunter in there that kind of ties in at some point. So, again, it was fun. It was fun to be able to do it. I was just trying to pull some of the Big Bang readers there and some of the Turtle readers to Big Bang, and I don't know that it necessarily happened that way. I mean, but that was, what we tried to do, and it was just very fun to be able to do it. So.
Yeah, we were getting a kick out. So we've been reviewing each of the new Urban Legends issues on our FINcast podcast as they've been coming out.
Cool.
And we got a big kick out of issue 9 of Urban Legends with the Night Watchman, just talking about how this really was the Ninja Turtles' first crossover with Batman before it really happened,
It was happening at the same time, so,
yeah,
as the reprint, so.
It is pretty funny how Night Watchman hates bats in this.
A little tongue-in-cheek, so.
But it's been... So I hadn't read the original series probably in over 10, 15 years, so it has been fun to get to read these again. There's a lot I forgot, and like I said, the color, it feels like a new comic, after all these years.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I hadn't either, and I went back and reread through them, to decide how I was going to finish them off, and I was like, I was very, very pleased with them. It sounds stupid to say, but yeah, I was like, I'd read this book, I'd buy this. But then it's me, what can I say?
Were you, before you wrote this, were you a fan of Ninja Turtles comics? Did you know much about Ninja Turtles comics? Did you have to read a lot before you started?
I went out and I was not a big fan. I remember when the first issue came out, and I, saw it in the shops. And
you saw it?
My partner in Big Bang, Chris Ecker, was actually the manager of the shop at that point, and he pointed it out, and I think he had a pinup in one of the first couple issues of the Turtles, but I remember seeing it on CNN or whatever. They were talking about this new independent comic book, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And that's kind of it helped set off the black and white boom, and so no, I really was not any kind of a big time fan. My son at the time was, I don't know how old he was, but he was a fan of the cartoons, and if the movies were out at that point, I had seen them with him, so that stuff I was familiar with. But no, I went out and bought all the issues that had come out of the regular book at that point, and after I tracked them all down, about 3 days later, I got a package in the mail.
With them all?
Yeah. I think I just sent it on to Frank. I don't know that they sent him one, so I just sent him those. And I read the ones, and I thought, okay, I enjoyed the first issues, but it was the City at War and whatever. There was another multi-part story that basically I was like, well, this is what I'm aiming for, which I think one of them was like 9, 10, and 11, or 10, 11, 12. And I think the next one was in the 20s. I'd have to look them up. Sorry, I'm a little oblivious these days. So,
and you managed to bring in a lot of their old, familiar cast too in it, and that's kind of
we weren't rebooting and recreating it at all. I figured they were there, so we used what we could, and in the way we were doing it, and it was fun. You asked earlier, and I don't know that I ever answered it. I'd write a plot, I'd send it off to Peter Laird at Mirage Studios, and get an okay there, and I'd run it past Erik, but he just he was really like the publisher. It was at Highbrow Studios, so he had final say, but he was very hands off, and worked on the covers basically, you know, once we got past the first issue or two, I think. And so, no, it was a pretty painless process, you know.
Yeah.
They let us do, you know, pretty much what we did.
That's always fun when you get a property that is not that no one cares about it, but they let you kind of do whatever you want with like rubber stamp basically everything, and you can go as wild as you want. That kind of happened recently on a series also at IDW called GoBots by Tom Scioli, where no one cares about GoBots, so we just did this crazy story with it. Those sorts of comics will endear like this, I would say, just because it was a point in time. Because now Ninja Turtles is so controlled. It's it's a brand. Its value is such that no one will have the freedom that you probably had ever again.
No, I would not imagine so.
Well, even the timing on issue 222 of Savage Dragon, Erik had mentioned that he reached out to Nickelodeon. He's like, you know, I'd like to have the Turtles have a cameo.
Yeah.
And they didn't turn him down. They just didn't reply. And so it's just, you know.
that sounds like how it goes. Yeah, they've got other stuff, and you kind of wait your turn, and sometimes it just doesn't come. So.
Yeah. Were there any like major ideas or plot points that you can remember that, or things that were rejected that you wanted to try out?
Nothing that comes to mind. I know early on, Peter Laird suggested we start off by killing off Splinter.
Wow.
Funny story. He would,
they would really have hated. You know, and there were so many people that hated it because it was so different from where the book had gone and in the Archie versions of the books and stuff. And I just, starting off by, yes, it would make a statement. Yes, this is not the cartoon one, but I thought that might be going a little far. And like I said, even there, I mean, over the years, people have always complained about the violence and stuff. And that probably would have.
I find it interesting that you said Laird said kill Splinter, because in the year 2000, Laird started up the series again, and one of the very first things he did was kill Splinter.
Well, there you go. You know,
still had that rule and that idea planted there. I do remember you, Gary. I think the last time we talked, you said one of the kind of rules they had for you was no female turtles.
That's true.
And which cracks me up is that scene when they're on Vanguard spaceship and you don't know it at the time, and a female turtle pops up and it turns out to be Lurch. Was that kind of a little just an inside joke kind of thing that kind of freaked them out?
Yeah, like, okay, it wasn't a real female turtle. But also it helped set up Lurch because he had a part to play in the issues after that, and I'd have to look back and see how far on he goes, but it just made sense to have to show people who or what Lurch was, and that was one way of doing it. So,
right,
and it was a fun way to do it, get around it a little bit and not get in trouble. Yeah,
it was a great sequence.
Yeah, it really was.
I've been reading all this as a fresh reader. See, I never read any of this, so this is all 100% new for me.
Same.
Oh.
And I just wanted to say, fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Because, we started reading it, and it was really the guys, Craig and Jim, they had told me, they're like, oh, well, you know, if you're a Savage Dragon fan, like, you know, you're going to like it. Like, Mako's in there, and Vanguard, and, you know, Hortus, and so you'll like that. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm down for it. Plus, I like Turtles anyway. Yeah. But just as it went on, like, I've just really been digging, like, you know, the Death Watch, like the Alien, and the Rayburn, the Serial Killer, and just all the stuff that you have done. And me and Craig and Jim were talking about just how, like, the way that you guys changed the Turtles up so drastically, even though people hated it then, it's kind of like that's what they do now with every reimagining of Turtles now. Like,
and see, and again, I'm still not a big fan and have not followed it in anything that's been done. I knew they brought it back and said, this stuff didn't happen. This stuff isn't part of the canon. And
yeah, that was one of the things.
it's like, oh, well, that's, and then I'd say, okay, wasn't there a female turtle, Venus?
Yep, in the TV show that was during this, I was just checking on that. Apparently that show ran like 97, and you guys ran from like 96 through 99. So that happened right in the middle of it.
That's hilarious.
Maybe that's why they didn't want any other female turtles.
That could be the case. It could have been a thing where they want this for this, so don't do it in yours.
Oh, sure, I get it. So, like I said, it didn't bother me. It didn't fit into the stuff we were doing, So,
female turtles.
So I think that's everything Turtles related. I mean, there's probably a lot to talk about, but of course, the series is up to issue 14 now. Unfortunately,
it's like there's 9 issues that a lot of people haven't seen, and still haven't got the go ahead on the 3 new ones, and I don't want to let stuff slip or whatever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we don't want
any secrets or have them come back and say, no, that's not going to happen. And then, so.
So, as I mentioned, I recently bought I think the first 20 issues of Big Bang Comics.
Okay.
So I've been reading them on and off for a couple of months now, and I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about Big Bang and its history, and what kind of like future plans you might have for it.
Future plans, I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks that retro comics are dead. I mean, it's been 20 odd years. Everybody's doing it now.
That's the crazy thing, is it almost feels like you were ahead of your time.
Yeah.
And now it's almost old hat. It's weird.
It's all over the place, and especially with the what do they call it? The characters, the copyright-free characters,
public domain stuff. Yeah,
and everybody's doing that, and it's kind of like what we were doing. I mean, all over the years, again, we've heard people saying, "Oh, it's just Batman. You're ripping." That's like, and really, the point of Big Bang was to tell a Batman kind of story, but not just rip Batman off. I mean, all the characters we tried to make them their own character, and yet still kind of fit into what the classic writers and artists had done. We were kind of ghosting the creators as much as a character, and have avatars that kind of fit.
Yeah, is it like a celebration of like comic history?
Yeah, I mean, the character that appeared most probably was Night Watchman, and even there, I mean, we kind of resisted the impulse to do an ongoing Night Watchman book because, I mean, the point of it was to do Batman stories, and I don't know. I mean, at some point, we'll probably get back to doing more Night Watchman stuff. I mean, it's kind of more wide open now, and I've heard it for so long. Oh, you're copying this. I'm like, okay. And at this point, we might just have a little bit more fun with this stuff than I've been doing. I mean, the last couple of years, there's been 3 issues of Big Bang Universe released through Americomics, AC Comics.
I actually got my hands on issue 1 of that. Yeah, it was very cool.
And I mean, they wanted an 80-page book, so it's like
gotta fill it. Yeah.
Yeah, these days getting 80 pages of stuff, it takes me a while. I'm part of the way through the latest issue, whether it's going to be AC Comics or something else. I'd like to see it in color. I mean, it's a lot. Some of that stuff, we actually printed up limited amounts of at least the National Guardians ones in color through Kablam. But I never released them through there. But I mean, they exist in that form to where we could, and so
I think that's what surprised me the most when I bought these back issues. For some reason, I had got it in my head the entire series had been black and white, but it was color originally.
Yeah, the original miniseries, the what was it? 4 issues at 4.5, 5 issues at Caliber Press were color, and then we moved to Image, and the first 6 issues were color.
Mm.
And then at that point, Image told me that
yeah,
how much I owed them, because those were the good old days when books were selling 100,000 copies, and Big Bang moved over there and was definitely in the 10 or 12,000 range. And
it's so weird that it couldn't find an audience at that time. I mean, I guess I can understand, because you were doing like Silver Bronze Age stuff in an era of extreme.
Yeah, and it was weird, and none of us really had any names. I mean,
yeah,
it was different. I mean, Alan Moore's, what was it,
1963, I think, or
63.
63.
I knew that, but
yeah, he basically did stuff like that with that 1963 series in Supreme. Really,
yeah, so
very Big Bang like.
And
Big Bang fought the guys, right? In issue 35 of Big Bang.
Yeah, that was Jim Valentino did that all, tied it all up, So
that issue's hard to find, by the way.
But we didn't have any names on us, and not even a regular character from issue to issue, as kind of a showcase thing where every issue was somebody different. I was talking to somebody today and saying, that's just not the way to sell a book.
Anthologies are hard sells, especially if you don't have a serial to tie it all together.
Yeah.
Something to draw you to buy the next issue.
Yeah. I was saying today that if Chris had managed to do, a Night Watchman story in every issue, then people would have that to look forward to and could take a chance on the other stuff. But it just didn't work that way.
Yeah.
So.
I tell you what, though, it really was a lot of fun. I mean, you read an issue of Big Bang, and it takes you a good chunk of time to get through it. I mean, we talked about this previously on the other episode that we had you on, but I really enjoyed not only just the stories, the comic stories, but the pages in between where, you had a lot of prose and discussions on things, or fake ads, or whatever it was.
The ads weren't all fake. I mean, really and truly, I'd have to look and see. I mean, there really was the Night Watch Club, and there really was. I was at a dollar store one time, and they had plastic soldiers, 100 of them for $1, and I just I bought them out and brought them home and put the ad in there, and people ordered them, and I sent it out, and
no kidding. I always thought that was fake.
They were probably an inch and a quarter tall. They were small, but there was 100 of them, and they were $1. And it was fun. I'm sure there were some fake ads, but most of it was pretty real. And
I remember the article about the Big Bang movie.
Yeah,
and that actually came out too, right?
That's real. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go on to the Big Bang website, there's a link to Deshira Productions, and you can buy it, I think, on DVD now.
Cool.
You can go on Facebook, or not Facebook, YouTube, and if you look for round, I think it's I don't know if it's Big Bang Knights of Justice, somewhere in there, and you can at least see part of it. I mean, it's fun. It's a little bit like kind of like Saturday morning shows from the early 70s. You know what I mean? It's not
it's kind of a little campy, and
Yep. Not perfect, but hey, it's just a lot of fun to see your characters on the screen.
Yeah, so that's cool. So I wanted to talk a little bit about something I saw recently. An artist named Jonathan Denry posted some Mighty Man pictures, and it looked like he was picking up on some of the stuff that the late Bill Fugate kind of left off on.
Yeah, well, when Bill died, we were nailing down a script for a Mighty Man story for one of Erik's
I think it was like issue 200 or something.
It was 200 or yeah, I don't even know when it was, but yeah, but I wrote the script and Bill rewrote it, and then I rewrote it again to where we were both happy with it, and then I found out he had cancer and he was gone, just like that, so.
It's a shame.
And I just thought, okay, we'll just let it rest. But, John popped up and we were talking about it, and he did some sketches and was hoping to do a Mighty Man story. I said, well, I've got one. It's pretty far along. Let's see, what have I got here? It's 7 pages are inked out of the 9.
Oh wow.
He lives over in England and got other stuff going on, but there's 9 pages done, and he's done a nice job. It's very Bill Fugitish and C.C. Beck, and I think it works pretty nicely, so trying different stuff with other Big Bang characters, but that one's coming along and is very classical Big Bang, so we'll see how that goes and how much Erik likes it, and
I'm sure he's gonna love it. I mean, remember he reprinted all of Bill's and your Mighty Man stories in Savage Dragon, I think 25, right? Or 50, was it? Yep. It was either 25 or 50. But those are my favorite stories in all of the Big Bang stuff, the stuff that you and Bill worked on together, because he just nailed C.C. Beck so well, and it felt like you were reading Captain Marvel story.
Well, and that was, with Big Bang, like I said, we always tried to make it different. I mean, Thunder Girl, that's Mary Marvel. It's like, no, Thunder Girl was a left-hand turn on Captain Marvel, but Erik said with the Mighty Man thing, do a Captain Marvel, a Shazam story. It's like, okay. So, we just aimed for that and just had a lot of fun with it. He'd already been working with the Horde character, and I was like, hey, this is cool. If you go back to the first Leech,
Yeah.
And
that was so good.
And gets split and keeps. It just was a lot of fun. Again, I mean, very hands off by Erik. I mean, he's always been great to me. Even the 3-issue crossover with Savage Dragon. I let him know what we were doing, but he was totally hands off with it. So. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what comes around goes around. I mean, he also, in the 80s, the Savage Dragons, some of his first appearances were in your Megaton anthology. So I think that's pretty awesome that he kind of paid it forward to you, down the line.
He did. I mean, a lot of the stuff I've done has, been thanks to him. I mean, part of it, I know he's a fan of classic comics, and he was a fan of the Big Bang stuff, and, gave us an extended life coming over, to Image and doing it there and using Mighty Man and whoever. And, Valentino was cool enough to be in an issue. And I mean, at one point we were supposed to do a bunch, have access to a lot of the Image universe, but it just didn't happen quite that way. So,
well, post 96 into the late 90s, things got a little weird with who was owning where they were going with their properties,
totally. So, but I mean, initially, that's the direction we were thinking, and it just okay, we didn't do it and didn't really need to, so
you got to play with a few.
Having a Spawn on the cover probably would have on some sales, but oh well.
You had a Shadowhawk through the ages, right? Wasn't that one of the big? Am I thinking that right, or was that in Shadowhawk where they had him kind of through the ages?
Well, not so much through the ages. There was just a Silver Age.
Okay.
In issue 2. I mean, the second Image issue.
That's right. Yes.
One of the reasons the move to Image worked, that was already in the works before we left Caliber, and that was in the works, and Mighty Man was in the works, and Erik's like, well, hell, you're using image characters, you might as well be an image. So we ran into problems at Caliber. They liked what we were doing, but they decided at that point they wanted to own Big Bang. They wanted to own a third, and whoever their distributor or partner with that was getting stuff into Walmart wanted a third, and we'd have a third, and we just said, no, we're not gonna give up our copyright. So they said, okay, you're done. And Erik said, no, you're not. Come on over here. So that's how that worked.
The in that issue too, the issue with Shadowhawk in it, there's a story, and again, I think I hit on this last time we talked, but also another one of my favorite stories is the Badge, I think it's called.
Yep.
Which is I don't know who the artist is on that. I don't know if you remember, but he does a killer like Kirby Simonson type riff, which he nails.
Mark Lewis, he always pulled that off. That's who I was talking to today earlier, and his Simon and Kirby stuff was always phenomenal. So many of the guys I worked with, I mean, nailed it. The ghosting. I mean, the anybody figures they can ghost, but then you get stuff in with a lot of swipes, and that I don't.
Yeah,
I've never liked. And they can, when they can pull it off. And sure they're using reference, but not the obvious stuff, So
yeah. No, I mean, and so with anything, is some of it's hit and miss, but when it hits, it's like, wow, these are great. It's like, it's cool to see a modern take on, or a modern story, not a modern story, but a new story that feels very old and could trick you.
Yeah, we got grief. I think that second one was probably that Badge story. Was that the one where he was fighting the Japanese bad guy?
The zombie crime boss, I think, is.
Okay, it's not that one. There was another one where they were fighting, and it was set in the 40s, and we were talking Japs and.
Okay, you got a little bit of grief on that.
Yeah, we got some grief on that and backed off a little bit from trying to be quite so.
Yeah, I think Roy Thomas got in trouble doing that with like All-Star Squadron early on. That he was doing stuff a little too real. Yeah, it bothered a lot of people.
And I can see it. I mean, short of saying, well, this is what we're doing is recreations or homage to this particular stuff. But yeah, I can see where. Not the best way to go. So
yeah.
So, is it any thought into getting a Big Bang collection? You think there's a market for that? I know you're saying it seems like there's a lot out, kind of flooding the market.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we've got to deal with Pulp 2.0. You can go on Amazon. I mean, they reprinted Night Watchman Graveyard Shift as one trade paperback.
Which is the modern type of, like the Frank Miller-ish type?
One, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And there was, I think, Night Watchman, The Golden Age. There was a Thunder Girl, more of a digest-sized one, and it's, a different Thunder Girl stories. He didn't go with any of the Mighty Man ones. I thought that would have been a smart way to go, but Mighty Man didn't find his way in there. Maybe it was to keep the thing down or whatever. And then there's another one. I think there's an Ultraman issue too. I mean, yep, there's been a lull in it. I really don't think they're selling real great. Of course, we're not out pushing hard.
Right.
But the one thing I'd like to see, the history of Big Bang as the two issues was one of my favorite.
Right. Yep.
Things we ever did, and I'd like to see that as a trade paperback, and I'd especially like to see the 3-part Dragon crossover as 100-pager. Erik was talking about doing that at one point, but he wanted to go in and he wanted to redraw the dragon in his style on every page, and just finally figured too much work, so.
Yeah.
That
would be interesting to see, but yeah, that sounds like a lot of work.
Oh, tons of it for,
for what?
Yeah, that's it.
He's just very protective of how his character looks. Like, he's funny like that, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think he wanted to do it in a modern style, not so much redrawn, in the retro styles, but have Drake not changing. But yeah, that's way too much work, and he's reprinted a couple of those stories as backup.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. He's been having them reprinted and colored. I think Adam Pruitt's been coloring them.
Yep, that's true with the retro.
The Mighty Man, the one that looks like the Bronze Age Mighty Man, is pretty awesome. That was recolored.
That one too. So it's been fun. Erik's always been a good friend. I mean, since way back, and I'm not real close anymore. I mean, he got real busy over the years, and I just.
You're still in Chicago.
What's that?
Where are you? You're still in Chicago, right?
In Wisconsin. I'm about 30 miles from Green Bay.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, for all, when I started off, I was in the Chicago suburbs, and early on in the Megaton days, he came out for the Chicago Con, and he stayed with us over the weekend, and we went to the show, and he got stuck going to my girlfriend's family's house for the 4th of July to watch some, cheap fireworks and stuff. But it was nice, I mean, over the years, I mean, especially Megaton, Big Bang, whatever. I mean, so many of the guys, I considered them friends and still consider them friends. Some of them are surprised that we're not friends, we're working together. But I mean, so many of them were. I mean, a lot of them, we spent a lot of time talking on the phone about, what we could do or should do or like to do, so.
And a lot of those guys, I mean, guys like Liefeld, he was pretty young when you guys first met. He was like 15 or something, right?
Something like that. He was still in high school, I believe.
Which is wild.
Yeah, and he's one guy that, again, I talked to him once or twice a week. He'd call me or vice versa, and we'd just talk for hours about comics,
That's so cool.
It was fun. I mean, he's the most enthusiastic guy I've ever met, I think. So
yeah, still to this day he seems that
he's
when you read his interviews.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Yes. That's it. He's a lot of fun. I mean, you see him at shows, and he's very entertaining and all encompassing, talking to people and whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's sort of, I mean, for a while, I mean, we were pretty tight, and after it's one thing when you're working together, and when you're not, then I just figure out I didn't want to keep bothering these guys, especially as busy as they got, so then it looks like you're trying to, hey, can you find something for me, and
yeah. But I'm sure if he bumped into you at a con or something, he would love to see you, and he would be pretty enthusiastic about that.
Rob, no, we were a couple years ago. We were at Wizard World Madison, and he was around the corner from me, and he was a little. Somewhere along the line, I must have rubbed him the wrong way. I'm not.
Oh no.
That's how it goes. I mean, he's still one of my favorite guys, and
yeah,
and has been all along. So.
Internet's funny like that. I was making a joke just the other day with Facebook, how you can sometimes it'll recommend friends, and you'll see a recommendation of somebody that you thought you were already friends with.
Oh yeah.
He's like, oh, he unfriended me. Okay, cool. I guess I made him mad. I don't know what I said, but sorry, dude.
And I don't even pay that close of attention. A lot of times I'll get, a friend request from somebody. I'm like, I'm already friends with them, and somebody faking it, so who knows?
So one of the things I really like to read whenever there's a new story post is on the Big Bang Comics website. You guys Is that you that's posting the...
That's me. That's my Bang blog. It really, all it is, it's just I'm going through issue by issue, and this is what was going on. And for the most part, it's kind of recapping what the stories were, but I try to drop in some art that, wasn't seen anywhere else, or once in a while a story or two, but some, I worked with a lot of the same guys. I'm up to issue 23 now. And it's like, you can only tell, how you met someone like Jeff Weigel. That's, he's doing the Phantom comic strip now, or Eric or Rob or whoever, So I've gotten where I'm just like, oh, this happens, and this was going on. And
no, it's a lot of fun. Like, for listeners out there, it's bigbangcomics.com, and if you haven't read Big Bang Comics, you really need to check out this website. I wouldn't lie to you, the stuff's awesome, and you still you still have issues in your store, so you could still buy these back issues.
There's some of them, I don't know. There's probably at least a handful that are out of print. I mean, some of them have been gone forever,
Yeah.
But most of them I've got them, and they're only $3,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like every 2-3 weeks someone will order 1 or 2 books, and
which are I got to go back and buy. So I have, I think, all but 4 or 5 of the Image ones. I got to go back and buy some of those Big Bang Presents and stuff like that. I gotta fill in some gaps there, but I do really enjoy reading your blog posts and getting a little bit of the background on there. It's just a lot of fun. You've built up quite a universe with these characters.
Yeah, and we ended up, doing it very much based on the DC universe. So the 40s and 50s took place, in a different dimension pretty much, and the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and, was more or less current back when we started in the 90s. So now I'm kind of like, God, if we do any more, it almost ought to be a third
Earth.
We were going with A and B, as opposed to 1 and 2. But yeah, you almost need a third one now. So
some of these covers though are just great. Like Agents of Badge is like, a riff on Shield's amazing.
Mark Lewis again there, I think so.
Teen Rex looks almost like a devil dinosaur type thing.
Totally.
It's so cool.
That was the point. I mean, and again, it wasn't just devil dinosaur, but yeah, I mean, he's definitely. Yeah.
Well, I think some people can't tell, like, it isn't a ripoff. It's a representation of a genre, of an idea. It's not like you're trying to, like, I'm writing a devil dinosaur. This is the devil dinosaur I want to tell. It's I want to write a story about this kind of character.
Yeah, and it's trying to tell a Jack Kirby story, a 70s DC Jack Kirby story.
Anything goes.
Yeah, and that was one way of doing it, and I mean, that was fun. I mean, of course, you could pretty much name most of the stuff, and if it was ones that I worked on, I'd tell you it was at least fun for me.
Yeah.
Because there were some outside characters that weren't mine and weren't ours, but even those, I wouldn't have gone with them if I didn't enjoy what the creators were doing,
Right. Now, I know also when we talked a while ago, there was maybe some kind of movement on a Megaton collection at some point. There was thoughts on that. Is there anything?
Put together 2 or 3 versions. Initially, I started one, I think, had the issues, and one of them had the unreleased, stuff that didn't make it out, and there was other ones were character related. But I mentioned it to Eric, and he volunteered to publish it through Image.
Mm-hmm.
Said he'd like to do it as one kind of archive thing, so I went back through it and repurposed it all. I forget if it's 250 or 350 pages. But
wow,
I would love a Big Bang archive.
Yeah.
Well, and this is Megaton. I mean,
Megaton. I'm sorry.
Megaton,
that too.
Yeah,
that too.
Megaton. Yeah, I'm sorry. Very sorry. But that's the Megaton one.
That's what I was talking about. Megaton.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's good. I'm sorry. So yeah, a Big Bang one could happen. I've been doing this stuff since 1981 and never really, the lightning never hit,
So wait, so you said you put it together for Megaton. So where does it stand? Is the offer still stand for?
Erik he offered to publish it, so I'm when he's ready, I'm pretty much ready. There'll be like I've said, it's roughly 300 pages, give or take, and it's going to be black and white. And I'd like to see a new cover on it. And it'd be nice if it was him, but I could check with any of the guys that.
Yeah,
that'd be really cool. I've never read any of that stuff except for what's been reprinted,
Rob,
of course.
Angel Medina, and
so many of those guys went on to big things.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's Angel Medina. He did Spawn for a while too, but also has got a large Marvel background. Who did the first issue of Megaton?
Mike Gustovich.
Yeah, that was good.
And Butch Geist, Jackson.
Butch Geist is who I'm thinking. I guess he did the cover, right?
Well, he did the first story. He did the ultimate story.
Yeah. Larsen. Yeah. Liefeld, he didn't really do a story in Megaton, but he did in the Megaton Explosion, kind of had, like he was getting ready to do some Youngblood type book, right?
He was ready. It was Youngblood. It wasn't Youngblood type.
Okay.
He did Rob's first, I think his first printed work was the inside front cover to Megaton 5, maybe.
Okay.
And he did a backup story in Megaton 8. And yeah, we were working on Youngblood book. In fact, it was solicited in September or so of 1987. Right about the time everything was the black and white explosion was everything was piling up and orders were going down. And I thought, well, here's a guy. The new Teen Titans was selling, and that was kind of Rob's inspiration back then. I thought this one's bound to sell, and no, we had orders for like 800 copies of it or something, and 5 years later they sold 1 million of them.
Yeah.
Of course he had gone and become a big star, but even so. There's, and that'll be, when the Megaton book comes out, the first 8 or 9 pages of that story were drawn, and I've got a number of pages of his character designs and stuff. It's just kind of fun stuff. And later on, there tends to be, a couple of pages on each of the artists, and some of the samples I had seen of them, where I tracked them down or that they first sent in trying to work,
So it's going to be more than just reprints of Megaton. There's going to be a lot of background type stuff, it sounds like.
At least some of it, yeah.
Yeah.
All 8 issues of Megaton are in there. The Megaton Explosion is in there.
Well, it is amazing because, and we talked about this last episode, but at one point Rob Liefeld kind of called you the grandfather of Image Comics. So it really ties in well to have this come out through Image, because you're seeing kind of the first incarnation of Youngblood and Savage Dragon and Vanguard. Angel Medina, who had a long run on Spawn, and so much of it is related, and I really hope it comes to fruition, because I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Oh yeah,
so many good artists were involved. Like I look at these issues and I'm amazed at how you found all these great artists. Usually when something's like a self-published startup, you might find 1 or 2 good artists, and some of the guys are just, they never quite make it. But it seems like most of these stories had just had amazing talent that went on to great things.
Well, that's it. At the time, fanzines were just, I don't know, they were still there. They were sort of dying out, and some of the other books were transitioning, into newsprint and showing up in the comic shops. And that's what I set out to do, was not so much a book, but a line with pretty much professional talent, guys that were ready to go. I mean, really, the first guy that I approached was Mike Gustovich, who Cobalt Blue, and soon after that he did the Justice Machine and some other stuff. And all of these guys were like, Marvel and DC just weren't hiring right then. And that was my thinking, well, if they won't hire him, somebody should, and a lot of them, they took a chance on me, Bill Reinhold was supposed to follow Mike Gustovich, but then, all these guys did a couple of stories or a story and were gone. And then he got to where guys were gone before they even did a story for me, so. But yeah, I mean, Butch Geis, I saw an ad in CBG, I think it was, for the comic show out his way. I can't remember which one it was without looking. Sorry, I'm 62. I'm just Heroes World or something. I saw it and I wrote and said, hey, can you put me in touch with this artist? And he was already at that point working on Crusaders, which became Southern Knights. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he popped in and, did the one story, and it just got to a point after 2 or 3 issues where, like I said, I mean, the guys were doing it. They had samples and it was like, oh, off to Marvel,
Right.
Clark Howbaker did an issue and it was off to Marvel. And, yeah, it got tough to hang on to guys. I was happy to find Angel because he was around for 3 issues on Megaton. And
well, you were 20-something, right, when you were publishing Megaton?
Yeah, 1981, I would have been 24. There's
no email or internet. It just seems like it's a lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of faxing, I was telling Mark Lewis today, I'm going through the files, and a lot of those faxes are gray and fading, and I'm like, hope I got better copies of some of that stuff somewhere. But
yeah, you got to scan all that stuff in so it survives.
Yeah, I was 24 and just out of college, and
wow.
I had been working nearly full time going to college, and then got out, and I was a couple of weeks away from graduating with my bachelor's degree, and then I won a scholarship. They wanted it to go to a political cartoonist. It was John Fischetti Memorial Scholarship, who was a big political cartoonist in Chicago, and there was nobody at the school that was any closer to a political cartoonist than me, so they created a 2-year master's program for me.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I was, 4 weeks away from getting out, and I was like, okay, now I'm in for another 2 years, and and the scary thing was so much of it wasn't involved with drawing. It was, okay, in order to make this a master's program, you're going to have to take
writing classes.
These classes, yeah. You have to be on the paper, not the artist, but you've got to write for the paper. You've got to take this journal. You got to take this advertising and blah, blah, blah.
Lord.
Yeah, some of them weren't, master's programs classes, so you had to do extra stuff to boost them. And yeah, I was just kind of crawling toward the end. And at the end, my buddy Chris Eckner and I, we were working on strips. I was writing them, he was drawing, and he was probably doing a lot of writing too. And we had one held by the LA Times Syndicate.
Wow.
And they wanted more, and it was down to like 3 strips, ours and 2 other ones. I can't remember. One of them's still syndicated elsewhere right now. And they ended up going, I think, with a Lone Ranger or something. But I dropped out, with the last semester before my master's degree. I just said, well, if they pick up this comic strip, that's what I'm doing, They didn't, so I was like, oh, that was a bummer. That's what I was like. I figured out I just turned right around and started with Megaton, and rather than drawing, I just said there's a lot of guys that are better artists than me, and they're all trying to find work, and I'm going to be the guy that hires them, and that's how I got started. So
it's wild.
Yeah, I paid them slave wages, but they weren't getting paid anywhere else, So
it worked. I think it all worked out for most of them.
Yeah, 20 or 25 bucks a page. Like I said, I mean, through college and then all the Megaton years, I was working full time. 8-hour, 10-hour days, and coming home and doing that stuff.
Well, when you love something like that, it seems like that's not an issue.
I did, and it was fun. It didn't quite pan out the way I had hoped, but it was great. And like I said, I made a lot of friends, and still real good friends with a bunch of them. So.
And 30-something years later, you've got fans still talking about it.
Well, yeah, some. I mean, mostly, Big Bang or Megaton's mostly remembered for, I mean, Erik Larsen and Rob Liefeld and, and some of the other guys and that. But that's okay. That's better than not being remembered at all, So
Absolutely.
No complaints here. I had a chance and didn't pan out, and had another chance with Big Bang when Erik brought us over to Image, I mean, I took 5 years off in between, and it was like, oh man, the breaks weren't there. And it had the breaks with Big Bang. I mean, color at first and whatever, and it just didn't catch. And it was like, oh well, we had every opportunity here and weren't able to make it work, So
yeah, but Big Bang for Image, how many issues did it last? Like 35, 30?
I think it was 35. And then
that's a respectable run.
Oh yeah,
I mean, that's an amazing run in comics. I feel like
there was like another 10 specials.
Right, yeah, and they would come out. Yeah, I remember
and some of those were back in color, so it was it was fun to get back in color, and it was just hit and miss. I mean, one of them would sell, and then the next one wouldn't, and that's how it went. So.
Yeah.
Let's say that's absolutely, though, an astonishing career anyway, to play Kingmaker for so many big names, to dabble with IPs like Ninja Turtles, to be able to publish, to be able to even just have a DVD of a TV pilot. I don't know. It's still incredible to me. I think, because I know so many, I fill my life with comic artists and comic creators. And I can tell you, Gary, there's people that couldn't draw flies if they were dead. And so I'm just saying, to have done so much, you should still be super proud, because holy Toledo.
Oh, I am. I've got no real complaints. I mean, I just don't. Like I said, I sit here and look at shelves of stuff, and I've had fun. I mean, really, that my goal really was always to do my own stuff,
Yeah.
My goal wasn't to get to DC or Marvel. I got a chance to do some of that stuff with Erik. I worked on Nova and Aquaman and whatever, and that was okay. But yeah, that was different. Working with the editors there, I was like, this isn't. I'm not doing what I want to do. So that's where. That's been my ball and chain, I suppose, is I want to have fun doing it. I don't want it to turn into the job,
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that is I 100% agree that is a fantastic goal in comics, because I know so many people, again, that they're like, oh, I'm going to get big and I'm going to go draw Spider-Man. And I'm like, yeah, and if you're lucky, 20 people remember what you did on Spider-Man. If you make your own thing, you're going to have fun. You're going to have a thing that you own forever, and it'll be associated with you. It'll be your Hellboy. It'll be your Madman, your Savage Dragon,
That's it, yeah, if you can pull it off. So
very cool. So with that, I want to wrap it up, but I do want to do one quick little game that we like to do on our interview podcast called 7 Questions, and usually they're Savage Dragon related. I've made these more of a Ninja Turtle kind of Big Bang related. If you'd like to just play, they're real quick questions, and whatever comes to the top of your head. You ready?
All righty.
All right. Question 1: your favorite turtle?
Oh, Mike.
The only one that you didn't mutilate.
Yeah, and it's probably. I mean, to me, he seemed like I treated him like the normal guy. I mean, he was writing and almost had one foot out the door to a real life if he wasn't a mutant turtle. You know what I mean? He got along well with Shadow and you know that sort of stuff. So yeah, probably him.
Okay. How about this is a multiple choice though. Your favorite turtle mutilation: A. Robo Donnie, B. Scarred Ralph, C. Severed Hand Leo, or D. Bat Splinter.
Probably Robo Donnie.
The most divisive character, I think.
Yeah.
Of
there was just a lot of stuff going on there and over the issues, and
Robo Donnie just makes sense. I mean, he's the technology guy.
That was my thinking on it. Well, Donatello does machines.
Yep.
We really play that up, but I was like, okay, he becomes a machine. So
yeah. I gotta tell you though, the Scarred Ralph with the hockey mask leading the Foot Clan is one of the coolest Ninja Turtle things ever.
I like that. I mean, I'm not sure where it is. I should just shut up, So it's only
all right.
15. I got the other 9 in my brain, and so I don't know. I didn't check. The books came in the mail the other day, but I didn't even look at them this time. So not yet. Sorry.
All right, we'll move on to the next one. This is a little bit silly, but Galahad, the White Knight, or the Night Watchman?
It's funny. As far as I'm concerned, Chris Ecker is the Night Watchman, and I'm Galahad. So,
so you're gonna go with Galahad?
Yeah, I'm going with Galahad. Yeah, I kind of forced Galahad on Chris, and I have a lot easier time writing that than I was again talking today and saying, I go in to write a Night Watchman story, and it's not like I'm writing a Batman story so much now. It's trying to write a Chris Ecker Batman story,
Yeah.
Too many twists for my brain. So it's like, okay, Galahad was my character, and I get it. Robin was my favorite. With the Batman TV show with Burt Ward and Teen Titans and all that stuff. So Robin was always my favorite. So yeah, I'd have to say Galahad all the way.
I didn't see that coming, but cool.
And that's just my own personal favorite.
Yep.
I know that I like him better, or that he's a better character or anything. But
no, I got you. Question 4: black and white or color?
Oh, I love color. I'd rather see it all in color. So
cool. All right, number 5. If you had to pick one, what's your favorite Big Bang issue or story?
My favorite issues are the 2 histories, 24 and 27.
Yeah, yep.
And I think that's one of Chris's, my partner Chris, Big Bang partner.
Yep.
It's so weird saying partner, and people like
nowadays you don't know.
No, I know. And I just thought that those worked out nicely. Again, I mean, homage in its own way to Jim Steranko's histories, and we twisted history in so many ways in there that those are fun. As far as individual issues of Big Bang, I read the Big Bang Presents after we left Image. The first issue was an homage to the Spirit, and that one I just loved the way it turned out.
I don't have that one. Is that for sale online?
I'm sure it is. I'm sure.
I'm gonna have to pick that up then. If that's one of your favorite, I need to read it.
So that's one. I'm sure there's a lot of other ones that.
Cool.
I'll sit there and smack.
Yeah, it's a tough question. There's a lot of stuff to think about there.
So much of the stuff. I mean, if Jeff Weigel drew it, I love Jeff Weigel's stuff. Same with Bill Fugit, though. I mean, I love Bill's work. So,
Yep. So, growing up, Marvel or DC?
DC.
Wow, that was pretty. No hesitation on there.
No, all you got to do is look at Big Bang. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
You did mention that. Born in '57, and I didn't. Well, it was DC all the way, really, till about '70 for me, and then I was strictly a DC guy. I lived in Sterling, Illinois, and there was a used bookstore, and I went there. They did have some used comics, and I picked up Avengers #4 and one or two other Avengers. And Avengers was really the only Marvel book I was a steady reader of. Wow. Yeah, through about '70. So it was either out of the Fantastic Four. Those were the issues at the used place, and I was like, I went with the Avengers, and that was still pretty much my call, So,
who was your favorite character at DC?
At DC?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Was there like one book that you were really like super into, or?
Teen Titans, Legion of Superheroes.
There we go.
There you go.
That's what I was waiting for. I love the Legion.
Yeah,
I actually moonlighted on a Legion podcast, and I've been getting all the Pantheon of Heroes issues together for a big retrospective.
Oh, nice. Yeah, Karate Kid and
Karate Kid
was out my favorite, the original one, Val Armour.
Oh yeah, he's underrated because he's Karate Kid.
Yeah, well, that's it.
But he can go toe to toe Superboy. He's the best.
Yeah.
All right, last question. This is a bit silly, but Hortus or Lurch the female turtle?
Oh.
Not so fast.
No, I enjoyed using Hortus. As the romantical hook up there with Mikey or whomever, whenever. Yeah, I enjoyed that. I liked Lurch the character, but no, Hortus, that was fun doing that stuff, and
that was a fun relationship just because it kind of lasted. I mean,
Eric brought it over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was very tame, but they were like 14-year-old kids pretty much. First time for the both of them, and yeah, I enjoyed writing that stuff.
That's really cool. Yeah, no, we love that over here. We talk about that when it comes up, and it's a cool dynamic. Like you said, like it's really kind of innocent, and they're just kind of the dopey kids, but it was cool that you guys touched on that.
Yeah, I thought that. And then Rapture'd come in and kick him out of the house and stuff.
Zap him or something. Zap Mikey, chase him out of the house. We were laughing about that. Like, their house has got like bullet holes in it because, Freak Force wasn't really pulling in the money.
Yep. So yes, I'd have to say Hortus.
Great. Well, thanks for playing along with that. I know it was kind of silly. But thanks for coming on. Unless you guys had some more questions, we've pretty much hit on a lot of it. We've got halfway through pretty much the Urban Legends Ninja Turtles series. We've got still have another half of the series to go.
Yeah, we'll be loving every issue.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. Like I said, way back, it wasn't popular, so.
It's just turned into a cult favorite.
Yeah, even some of my friends. When I took on the job, I'd say I'm writing the Turtles, and people would be like, "Oh, I'm sorry." How low have you fallen? I was like, "No, this is great." And they're like, "Yeah, sure it is." And then, I sent copies of the books out to my friends, and they're like, "Oh, thanks," And one of them a couple years later said, I read them and they were fun.
Yeah, they really are fun. And I think they got to a point where they're so hard to find and their value was so high because they're so rare and people want to read the issues. So it's really great that IDW is reprinting these in an affordable format.
It is, it is. I know Frank goes to shows, but I probably still got half a box of them here. So
yeah.
Anybody who needs them, let me know.
Well, yeah, and also the thing I love is that they didn't just come out with a trade, and they're coming out single issue by issue, which makes it really fun.
Well, that's what I think. The trade will be coming, I guess, so that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. But just the fact that we're getting them on a month-by-month issue, it feels like a brand new comic, and I think that's the best way to read them.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And then, like I said, hope people enjoy them, you know, and people are maybe giving them a chance now to where just going to the shows back in the old days, it was very strange. So,
yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks again for coming on. It's always a pleasure talking to you. We had a lot of fun, learned a lot of cool stuff. I know I'll be hopping back on the Big Bang website to pick up some of those issues that we talked about.
Same.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, you can always just email me if you want and check what I've got. I mean, the website's pretty good. Sometimes you go in and you try to click on an issue, and if it's not there, it just won't put one in your cart. But check with me. And some of them aren't listed because I only had, 10 copies or something, and I didn't want 50 people ordering them,
Right.
Oh, well, sorry.
All right. Well, cool. Well, thank you.
Take it easy. Thanks again for having me. Hope I didn't repeat too much stuff from
6 years ago. It's fine. Even if you did. We didn't. We made it a purpose not to talk much with about Vanguard and stuff like that, which we went over a lot last time. So this was great. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being on.
Take care.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was a good interview.
It's always great to have such cool creators just come on the show and just talk about whatever, especially their creative endeavors. It's always so cool.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to talk to somebody with just such a legacy, such a history, really venerable, honestly, like a career that has touched a lot of careers.
I mean, being kind of labeled the grandfather of Image Comics and seeing a 15-year-old Rob Liefeld and a young Erik Larsen, where they started and seeing, the whole journey, it's pretty cool. And I like the fact that, he took a chance on Erik and gave, Erik work, and then Erik kind of paid it back years later, which is pretty cool because Erik's put Gary on a bunch of stuff, as we've heard.
And I think there's some beautiful symmetry there in another way, because you think about it like, Gary went on to give a ton of talent opportunity that they did not have. And they went on to impact and influence things in many ways. And Savage Dragon is the exact same way. You see talent on that book that goes on to do other things. Like, it's very much the same thing. So it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been so many guys that have worked on Savage Dragon offshoot books or backups that have gone on to good pro work.
Well, think of it like this. All right, so if we're Back to Future in this whole thing, like if Gary was just like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm a political cartoonist, and he never did like any kind of like Megaton or any of that, it's very likely there'd never be an Image. And then you go on and you look like, okay.
Or would look like something completely different, maybe.
Yeah, the landscape would be completely different. You go on like, if Erik had never been given an opportunity by Gary, there'd very likely not be a Walking Dead. And again, these are just like some of the high Image, Walking Dead, like some of the highest profile things to happen in North American comics. And so you can't downplay, like, just even to play a part, any part in that. It's just insane.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty cool to think about. I mean, I have no doubt Erik would have found other avenues and stuff like that, but it might have not looked the same, and definitely gave him, an opportunity to showcase his stuff.
Yeah. Just again, though, like, think about that time frame. Like, it's such a different world from like what we live in now. Like, where we have Kickstarter and webcomics and,
Or just send me the files. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure things get lost in the mail and just took forever to contact or... I can't imagine what it was like trying to self-publish an anthology comic back in the day with the way people miss deadlines and there's no internet to just send crap over.
You
It's
heard
pretty wild.
he was talking about faxes.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Yeah, it was a completely different world. I can tell you, as somebody who wanted to create comics in a pre-internet era, it just seemed impossible. It literally seemed, because it was if you didn't want to, if your goal wasn't to work at Marvel or DC, what was your goal? What were you going to try and accomplish? Who was going to publish your work? There was no image. So, yeah, it's nuts.
Yep. Cool. So, our next episode should be which issue of Savage Dragon now? What are we on?
I just had it up.
Started looking at lobster pizza, didn't you?
Click.
It should be Savage Dragon issue 245.
Ooh.
We're getting close to the big anniversary.
That appears to currently have a published date of July 10th, so we'll see.
What, 250?
No, 245.
245.
Oh, okay, July 10th.
I'm seeing on the Image website July 17.
Maybe it got pushed.
Maybe. So we got a bit. We still got a bit. So hopefully this episode kind of holds you guys over, and we'll see you back in maybe the end of July.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully. Well, yeah.
Maybe before. Yeah.
Maybe
Well, it'll be
before.
published on
Middle July,
17th.
yeah.
Enjoy your fireworks and hot dogs, guys.
Yep.
All right. Well, peace out.
Thanks for listening.
Adios.
Stop recording.
Not recording.